Well, everybody, this is without a doubt one of the most worrying but still unsurprising things I've seen coming out of Trump's administration so far. I've talked a lot about how Trump and just the right in general rely heavily on ignorance to succeed. A lot of their talking points are memes. You ever notice that? Most conservative beliefs, talking points, and most of their rhetoric are memes. They have created memes. They know what makes a meme successful, what makes it ubiquitous and popular and spread widely. A lot of conservative talking points are memes, and said memes, like any meme, is not meant to be taken super seriously. It's meant to be... God, my hair in my face. It's not meant to be taken super seriously. It's meant to be laughed at, considered maybe just a joke, and moved on from, right? And when said memes or conservative talking points are about a real, complicated political topic, it feels like they're designed to simultaneously give people an opinion they feel like they should have on a complicated topic they know nothing about, while simultaneously encouraging them to stay ignorant about it. And this is essentially the core of like 99% of right-wing talking points. Think of a popular right-wing talking point. It's a meme. It's probably been sloganed or turned into a slogan or a meme you hear repeated all over the place. And it probably relies on a very, very ignorant understanding of the issue it's in reference to in order to consider it funny or much less making a valid point. With this in mind, it's easy to derive the simple conclusion that Republicans, conservatives, and most particularly MAGA rely heavily on ignorance to succeed. Dumb people equals more MAGA voters. And so it shouldn't surprise you that Trump's FCC chief has opened an investigation into NPR and PBS, two public, accessible, education-oriented companies, nonprofit companies, I believe, or at least PBS is a nonprofit, whose entire purpose is making learning and being informed and caught up on things accessible. I grew up watching PBS Kids. Nowadays, I watch channels on YouTube like PBS Eons and whatnot, usually hosted by Hank Green, funnily enough. And it's sad to see that one of the most valuable resources for learning available to people is now under attack by Republicans, because the goal is not just to destroy our education system so that people are not getting a good education. If people can still pursue education outside of school, then they'll still have failed at their job. Their goal is to ensure that the next generations coming to age in this country have no access to information, history, or education that is not in lockstep with their worldview, their narrative, and what will create more Republican voters. President Trump's new head of the Federal Communications Commission has ordered an investigation of NPR and PBS with an eye toward unraveling federal funding for all public broadcasting. That's right. Kiss public broadcasting goodbye. Any path through which children could be educated or gain knowledge or historical context for the world, it will be shut down. It is the prerogative of Republicans to ensure the future generations of Americans are as uneducated as possible. The more uneducated America is, the more Americans vote conservative. This has always been true. And as America has had greater access to better education, people have voted Republican, or I should say conservative, less and less. Conservatives realized this made their positions, their worldview, a relatively dying, endangered idea, and they realized they needed to enforce the creation of new conservatives, and this is how they do it. I am concerned that NPR and PBS broadcasts could be violating federal law by airing commercials. Chairman Brendan Carr wrote on Wednesday to the presidents and chief executives of NPR and PBS, Catherine Mayer and Paula A. Kerger, respectively, quote, "In particular, it is possible that NPR and PBS member stations are broadcasting underwriting announcements that cross the line into prohibited commercial advertisements." For those that don't know, remember when you'd be watching PBS Kids and they do that little bit where it's like, Arthur and other programming on PBS are brought to you in part by, and then they would like play some commercials because those are the companies that literally are sponsoring the network. Like, sponsors are ads, and they're publicly funded and companies sponsor them. That's how that works. You don't have to pay for it. That's how public broadcasting works. Companies and the federal government have paid to keep PBS going so the average person, even without cable, can access it and watch it. That is the point of public broadcasting. Anyway, public broadcasting stations are prohibited from running commercials. Instead, they present what are considered corporate underwriting spots, which are supposed to stop shy of a call to action telling listeners and viewers to buy a product or service. Both CEOs, it's not technically an ad, but it's literally an ad. Everyone knows it is. It's just, who cares? No, anybody trying to attack PBS or NPR for this is just trying to shut down PBS and NPR. Let's be real. Let's not pretend that's not what's happening here. We're 10 days into Trump's presidency, and they're immediately attacking every route through which people get an education, from public schooling to literal PBS. Both CEOs rejected the claim that the public broadcasters had violated federal laws or practices that stretch back decades. Quote, "PBS is proud of the non-commercial educational programming we provide to all Americans through our member stations," Kerger said in a statement shared with NPR. Quote, "We work diligently to comply with the FCC's underwriting regulations and welcome the opportunity to demonstrate that to the commission." I like that. Dude, that is a solid response. We follow the law and welcome this investigation as we've done nothing illegal. Damn. Solid response. You can't really like pick that apart. It's like, well, fuck. They're saying, yeah, try me, investigate us. We've done nothing wrong. Like that's not suspicious in the slightest. That's the least suspicious thing you can possibly say when accused of something. Like, the least suspicious thing you can say is, I have nothing to hide. Investigate away. Look into everything. I don't care. In a statement posted publicly, Mayer said NPR's corporate sponsorship credits and programs complied with federal regulations and FCC guidelines. Quote, "We are confident any review of our programming and underwriting practices will confirm NPR's adherence to these rules," Mayer stated. "We have worked for decades with the FCC in support of non-commercial educational broadcasters who provide essential information, educational programming, and emergency alerts to local communities across the United States." Carr noted in his letter that he was sharing it with lawmakers on Capitol Hill because he thought it could inform their debate over whether to cut off all taxpayer subsidies of NPR and PBS programming. That's all this is. The goal is to say, look, PBS and NPR, they're running ads. Don't you think we should cut off their public funding? They don't need it. That's the goal here. Not only to shut it down, but to do it with popular support. Quote, "For my own part, I do not see why Congress should continue sending taxpayer dollars to NPR and PBS given the changes in the media marketplace." There you go. Right there. Right the fuck there. Why does PBS and NPR need our federal funding when they're already making money through sponsorships? Yeah, Bob Ross's afro is literally turning in its grave right now. He argued that any sign that taxpayer dollars are supporting a broadcaster running what are effectively commercials further undermines the case to send federal dollars to public broadcasters. In a statement, FCC Commissioner Jeffrey Starks, a Democratic appointee, said Carr's announcement was a source of serious concern. Quote, public television and radio stations play a significant role in our media ecosystem, Stark said. Quote, any attempt to intimidate these local media outlets is a threat to the free flow of information and the marketplace of ideas. Carr's letter fits into Trump's calls for the end of public funding of NPR and PBS, and into the president's broader rhetorical onslaught against media outlets. Quote, there's no reason to believe there are significant or widespread violations of Section 399B of the Communications Act, as referred to in the letter, or of FCC guidelines adopted under that law, says Andrew J. Schwartzman, a public interest media lawyer who has represented consumer groups before the agency. It leads me to conclude it's much more of a scare tactic than the identification of a genuine problem. The FCC chair, under former President Joe Biden, Jessica Rosenworcel, cited free speech principles in dismissing complaints earlier this month against local stations owned by the three TV networks, CBS, NBC, and Fox. Last week, Carr reinstated the complaints filed by a Trump-affiliated group against CBS and NBC for their treatment of the presidential campaign. That's right, guys. Trump-affiliated groups are filing complaints with the FCC against CBS and NBC, and CNN too, they forgot to mention. That's why if you go to the comments section of most of these mainstream news stations' new videos, a lot of the comments are from MAGA people saying, I can't wait for Trump to shut down your station. And that's why a lot of these stations have bent the knee to Trump, because there are Trump interest groups actively suing and trying to shut down these networks with the help of the FCC. And the reason is how they treated the Trump campaign. Say goodbye to left-wing media. If you thought it wasn't left-wing before, you're about to have your eyes open to the reality of what no left-wing media in America actually looks like, because it's our future. On average, NPR's member stations get 10% of their funds from the U.S. Chartered Corporation for Public Broadcasting. Rural stations are generally among the most dependent on such federal largesse. I've never heard that term before. Largesse. Interesting. Hold on. Let me look this term up. I've never heard it before.
Largesse.
I pronounced it right. Okay. Generosity in bestowing money or gifts upon others. Money or gifts given generously.
Largesse.
Huh. New word learned. Nice. As a result, public broadcasting has often enjoyed bipartisan support. Trump has used the Conservative Heritage Foundation's Project 2025 as an informal blueprint for his second administration, nominating one of its co-authors as his budget chief. The section on public broadcasting called for the elimination of all federal funding. Quote, the next conservative president must finally get this done and do it despite opposition from congressional members of his own party if necessary. Mike Gonzalez, and yes, that is how Mike Gonzalez sounds, a senior fellow at Heritage, wrote in a report, to stop federal funding is a good policy and good politics. In his first term, Trump repeatedly sought to eliminate federal funds for the Corporation for Public Broadcasting without success. There is an internal inconsistency with complaining about underwriting paying for public broadcasting and simultaneously objecting to public funding, Schwartzman adds. There's an illogic to those two positions, unless you don't really want the nation's audience served by public broadcasting at all. So, I love this last bit. Disclosure, this story was reported and written by NPR media correspondent David Folkenflik and edited by deputy business editor Emily Kopp and managing editor Vicki Walton-James under NPR's protocol for reporting on itself. No corporate official or news executive reviewed this story before it was posted publicly. So yes, this is NPR reporting on itself and PBS, but, well, NPR is a pretty trustworthy source, and so I think they're fine to have gotten this story from. So the response from NPR is literally just try us. The response from PBS is literally just try us. Like, if you actually legitimately think we broke any of these laws, then review us. We have not, and we will be fine. The problem is, that's not what's happening here. I hope the people at PBS and NPR know this, but This is just step one to shutting down these organizations. They're just trying to rally up enough general public support to do so that when they do, it doesn't end up being a political backfire. Remember, we're not just going to fall into fascism, we're going to fall into fascism to the soundtrack of thunderous applause. If you all enjoyed this segment, if you found it enjoyable, educational, or even entertaining, then please consider leaving a like and a comment. Every single thumbs up and comment in real time goes a long way to support the channel immensely in the algorithm, and it helps a ton, so I really do appreciate it. Also consider subscribing and ringing the bell icon to turn on all notifications so that YouTube actually tells you when I go live or upload new videos in the future, because if you don't, they won't. And of course, if you want to see more from me on other platforms, you should follow my social medias, linked down below in the description. And of course, you should perhaps consider, if you want to support me directly, help me keep the lights on and a roof above my head here at the Xander Hall studio. You can donate, subscribe, or gift a sub on my website, xanderhall.com/live. Or you can support me through YouTube, Twitch, Streamlabs, Stream Elements, Patreon, or you can buy some merch through the Streamlabs link down below in the description. Regardless of how you support me, though, thank you all so much for watching, as always, and I hope that you have a good one.